on March 13th, 2014. My name is Joe Ivers. I will serve as board chair for the evening until Wendell Jones arrives. I did receive a text from him, and he was in Roanoke at 7 o'clock, so I assume he'll be here momentarily. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion of the agenda? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Superintendent's reports, recommendations, and announcements. We have a single item on the agenda tonight. That is to begin discussion regarding the 2014-2015 budget. Dr. Stanton.
Thank you, Mr. Ivers. I'm going to step away and go down and make a presentation from the presentation.
Right.
Good evening, board members. Okay, the question is, why are we here tonight? Well, typically, we will not begin discussions regarding budget cuts until after the boards of supervisors approve their budget. No increases in funding from the county administrator, coupled with the failure of the state to provide education funding, will leave us with the need to make drastic budget cuts. As a result, it is important to start the conversation surrounding what these cuts may look like. So as we begin our discussion tonight, we should consider the proposed operating budget. And here are some things that we should consider. The proposed operating budget is the same as 2008-2009. It is $7 million less than the state has given in the past. It is a 2008 funds, and we're going to be spending at a 2015 cost. We should also consider the fact that the county has attempted to make up the difference in the past. So, why is this year so difficult? Since 2008, the state has continued to fail to appropriately fund education. As a result, we have to enact many cuts, actually drastic cuts, which include people, programs, and supplies. So where are we spending our money? People, programs, and buildings. 88% of our budget is spent on people, our personnel. That leaves us with about 12% to operate buildings, transport students, and to provide staff members with the supplies they need to do their jobs. The county administrator's proposed budget is seen here. This slide is deceiving. The additional revenue shown here is additional state revenue. What it does not consider is that more than half of the money will be spent on unfunded mandates from the state. And we've talked a lot about that in the last 2 months, what those unfunded mandates consist of. So additionally, the county has previously provided us with more than $500,000 in one-time funds for building repair. Those funds are not available, they are not included in the county's proposed budget and have to be absorbed by the Montgomery County Public Schools operating budget. With a projected $3.9 million shortfall from the needs-based budget you approved in February, what are our options? First, we can hope for additional state revenue. This is unlikely as the General Assembly continues their budget negotiations. Two, we remain hopeful that the Board of Supervisors will look closely at the county administrator's proposed budget and determine that education should be a priority in Montgomery County. And then finally, budget cuts are our final option should we not receive any additional funding from the state or from the county. So the purpose of our meeting tonight is that we will look at we will review the superintendent's proposed budget cuts. Once you review these cuts, we hope to gather input regarding what other information you need to make that you will need to make an informed decision as we move further into this budget process. Here are the superintendent's proposed budget reductions. This list is what the superintendent believes would meet the budgetary need while still continuing to provide quality education for students in Montgomery County. I and other members of the leadership team are here to answer any questions you have about the budget reductions. We do not anticipate that this will be the last year where we are faced with difficult decisions. The board will need to begin discussions now on taking a serious look at different ways of doing business to continue to provide quality education to our students. As a result, the superintendent has added a special note about the need to spend 2014-15 evaluating the potential closure of school buildings for 2015-16. Now, this is a frustrating conversation for me. I know it is for you, and I know it is for parents, but it's a difficult one that we need to have. So spending the year researching the feasibility for school closures will produce findings that will allow us, once and for all, to determine whether closure is an option to be considered. So, the Board of Supervisors will meet Monday to establish an advertised tax rate. The tax rate that they decide to advertise will give us a clearer indication of the level of funding we can expect to receive for the next year. At this time, we do not have a number for estimated state revenue because the state could not reach an agreement on the budget. So what can be done? What can be done to improve the budget? We are encouraging community members to contact their local legislator and tell them that they must support education in Montgomery County. The members of the Board of Supervisors must know that we support a tax increase to help adequately fund education. Therefore, community members can attend public hearings, they can call them, and they can email the Board of Supervisors. The General Assembly is still deliberating about their budget. So it is important to contact our representatives as well. Contact information for both groups are available on our website. Your budget goals are to enhance student programs: employee compensation, student safety, fiscal responsibility through community engagement, and instructional expenditures. We will not be able to provide, at this point in time, we are at $3.9 million in reductions to our needs-based budget. We will not allow this, or this will not allow us to meet these needs that I just mentioned. We can't meet our goals with such a reduction. We will not be able to provide our students with better educational opportunities. We will not be able to provide our staff with better compensation. And we will not be able to provide or improve the maintenance and safety of our buildings. All of these things require money, and that seems to be in short supply with the lack of funding in education. So that concludes this presentation, and at this time, I am available to answer any questions along with the rest of the staff here.
Any comments or questions at this time? For the, could you go back to the superintendent's proposed budget reductions? Thank you. Everyone have that on their, okay. Well, Board, what are your wishes? Where would you like to start? Would you like to start with this, and we'll go through this complete list? The one is up on the screen now. Am I getting yeses? Let's start off with the very first, the educational programs, restructure the GED program, which would be a savings of $30,000. What exactly does that mean?
I asked Ms. Weaver to come in.
That would mean consolidating services to some sites. We've already eliminated in the past 5 years some of the sites. We used to offer them in a variety of places throughout the division. So we'd offer the same services, but it would be in fewer areas.
For the general public out here, we've cut program after program after program, and we're getting to a point where those children who are in need are going to be hurt the most. And we continue to hurt those folks who need the aids and need the assistance. And I don't see anything else to do other than I'm hoping that the general public will respond by going out and talking to their legislators and supervisors. That's the only way we're going to get any more or stop the budget cuts. Any questions about that first item, which is number 2 on our proposed reductions? Thank you. Reduce funding for field trips by 20% and realign allotment based on FR population. And again, translate that, please?
This would simply be reducing how many field trips we take or how many we allow. So we'd have to work out a plan. The FR population is, we do realize that certain schools with a low with a lot of students at a low socioeconomic status might need more funds than a school that does not have that population.
So does our current plan have a certain amount that goes to every school?
Our current plan is done by student population at each school.
Okay.
What has been the reduction? What has been the reductions in the past several years to this line item?
I believe we cut 10% before. Let me check with. Okay.
Yeah.
We can check for you. I think
Okay.
it was 10.
Because I know we cut a couple of years, and then we put some back last year,
Right.
but that still wasn't the complete amount that we have been cutting for the last several years.
Actually, I think we completely restored.
Did
So
we?
this would
Okay.
just turn us backwards.
And which field trip groups would that be
Well, here-
for? I mean, like, I know, my daughter in 8th grade, she's got 2 field trips coming up, expensive field trips. So, what does that mean, cutting 20%? Does that mean that means more for the parent to have to pay? Does that mean more for, like, the field trips just going for a day to the high school to see a play? What field trips does that mean?
What we did before when we cut is the school has an allotment for field trips. And so then the school chooses within that allotment how they spend their money. So it would vary school to school as to what they chose to cut. And of course, there are certain trips you would see as one that you must do, and then others that we could cut.
And I'm assuming we're talking strictly academic field trips.
All field trips should relate back to the instructional program, except we do have, of course, field trips that go along with athletics as well at times.
And that's,
Different budget.
This would
That's-
include all field trips that we could,
it includes them too?
right, well, the school would decide what they cut.
Oh,
We would cut the allotment.
Don't many of those get their monies from booster clubs?
Yeah, we're just talking about cutting the money that we provide to
Yes,
schools.
right.
Booster clubs would not be involved with this.
Right,
They would
okay.
still
Like away
provide money.
games
Yeah.
and things like that, like the parades and
Oh,
stuff. Those
okay,
are
okay,
considered field trips as far as if you're talking about that kind of
Right.
thing. So it would cut, like the band going to an away football game.
Anyone else? Thank you. Restructure summer school offerings. Where are we with that?
The primary reductions to summer school program would be our 9th grade academy is on the proposal to not include for this summer, and also to offer more of our programs online rather than face-to-face.
So you're talking about eliminating that and offering it online?
More of our courses would be offered online rather than face-to-face. It's in the same model that we use for Project AIM currently.
Which again hurts those kids who are living on the borderline and are in need of more help. Any comments on that?
Yeah, so what has been our participation with our online programs during the summer at this point?
It's been very good. We've had Project AIM in existence now for several years, so students are becoming more and more used to those types of classes. So that's not unusual. We're just looking at consolidating even more classrooms in that same format.
Okay.
Are the students doing well with the program, those that participate?
They are.
Okay.
Okay. Which group of children do we have? Are these our AP students who are taking advantage of this, or is this across the board?
No, these are credit recovery classes. So these are students that are struggling or have already failed a class that are involved in those programs.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Reducing supplies budget, that's $97,774.
Well, that would incorporate a variety of things. You would have less copying paper in for the teachers to at their disposal. You would have less toilet paper, variety of supplies that used for cleaning. I've seen in other school districts when we've had tight budgets where things have been rationed out. So we wouldn't want to. These are the things that our teachers and our administrators will be faced with when we start reducing the types of supplies that's needed to operate effectively. So again, there's a variety of different things that's going to be affected with that.
That $97,000 number, what percentage of our supplies budget does that represent?
I think that, did we say half? Was that half?
It was just restoring, it wasn't really a percentage.
Okay.
I can calculate the percentage if you like.
I would like,
Yeah,
Okay, we'll get that to you.
absolutely.
I assume we don't really have packets of toilet paper and paper sitting around that's extra, that's going to cover this 97,000.
That hasn't been a problem. Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Remove line 3 from approved budget, restore governor's schools summer programs, 4 spots.
This summer, we were able to use one-time funds to send that amount of money to spend on summer governor's school. So that would take that money back out. We were hoping to make that a permanent part of the budget instead of using one-time funds. So that would take it back out.
And that's the,
That's the entire summer governor's school program. That's not a portion of it.
What did we do prior to this year?
This is the number that we've
We've
Been
always
able to-
had that number? Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Do we always fill the slots that we have?
We always fill the slots we have, yes.
so this cost will go back to the parents, is that what we're saying?
No,
Or it just is gone?
our students wouldn't be able to participate in the program. Parents aren't allowed to pay for the program themselves.
Any other comments or questions? Remove line 4 from approved budget, online student enrollment software. Can you clear that up, please, for us?
Yes, that would have been a new purchase. We were hoping to purchase an enrollment software that would have streamlined the process when parents enroll students. So it's not something that we would lose because we don't have it anyway. We would just continue to use the methods that we're currently using.
So moving into the 21st century is going to have to wait another 2 or 3 years, is what you're saying?
True.
Because we've already lost the backpack, that-
Right.
what was
This-
that?
This wasn't a program for students, though. This was a program for parents to enroll. But
I
yes, we
understand that.
already lost e-backpack.
Yeah, and that was going to be for all 4 high schools, definitely for 3 of them.
3 of them, the
And
state
the
would have.
state was going to fund half of that, and we've lost all that completely. Is that correct? So far?
Almost correct. The state would have funded a little over 200,000. Our percentage would have been 40,000, and the board decided not to opt for that. If we included Blacksburg High School, which didn't qualify, then a cost to Montgomery County would have gone up.
400.
But with this, we've decided not to accept the $200,000 from the state, which over the next 4 years would have been a total of $800,000 that
Exactly.
we would have accepted from the state.
Exactly.
We're forgoing that and giving that money back to the state.
Any other comments or questions?
and that's because the impact on the district would have been,
Our $40,000 match for each year.
Well, it would have been more
To-
than that,
Yeah,
because we would have
40.
had the insurance and the programs and the extra teaching. I mean, so,
It would have been more if we chose to
Right.
enhance the program. If we did it at bare bones,
right.
it would have been the 40,000.
But just to kind of, because when we had it, it was ranging more closer to $1 million, right?
That
When
was
we
the number
included
that was in there.
Blacksburg High
Right, yeah.
School
Right.
and incurred the cost of doing that
And the
high
cost-
school, we do have the option of not doing that high school, of course.
Right.
And the cost of the 4 years plan, it wasn't going to be, we just provide 1 year and not continue.
It would have been 40,000 each year, the matching funds, yes.
until they ran out, and then we would have been responsible to keep the program going. you know,
After the
Unless the
first 4
state
years,
offered
yeah.
something.
first 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what it essentially had done was offered $400 per student, and what was presented to us was the enhanced program, which was going to cost a lot more than $400 per student, which was why, and to include Blacksburg High School, which was why it was going to go up to that, I think it was like $870,000 mark.
And the board also refused, when it was offered to them, to take one school,
Correct.
correct? And do we have any idea what that would have cost?
I can bring that back to you,
I
but
think it was I think you already have as bare minimum, which is
Correct.
what it would have cost, and the board refused that also.
Right, would have been based on the population of which school you selected.
Yeah. And I don't know that the word is refused.
Right.
We made a choice
Yes, that was a choice.
What was the choice?
not to. That's totally different than refusing.
And it's still an option that we still have time to look at it, should the board choose to look at it again.
Any other questions on that? The enrollment software?
Yeah, I do have one question. If we were to get this software, would we be saving in other areas of the way we do it right now? I mean, seems to be in addition to, what's the purpose of this? Is it to replace something, or is it we're just adding something else?
It was an enhancement to, it would say parent time, staff time, that type of thing. We didn't calculate based on time how much we would have saved.
Okay.
Do we think this would have encouraged more parents and students to use, I just lost the word, to participate and possibly look at enrolling in college?
I don't think that would, this would be more for when a student enrolls in school, the information that we have to complete at that time. So I don't think it will, yeah, it would have been a nice enhancement, but I don't think it will discourage parents.
So this was for like entering kindergarten, first
Oh,
grade,
okay.
preschool.
And all the way
And
through,
then everyone
enrollment
if they
throughout.
were enrolling
Yeah.
from a different district
Do you
or
have any
something.
other detail? No. Just anytime a student enrolled,
Okay.
K through 12.
Okay.
No,
Right.
okay.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Remove line 5, college application week, expansion to include all high schools. This was the program that was so successful out at East Montgomery.
Correct. It was to expand that
we
program
had-
to the other schools.
We had chosen to expand it to all the other schools, so really this is not a program that exists,
Correct.
okay? But it's a program that certainly was very successful,
It was very successful.
and the 44,477 would have been, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just the
The
50,000.
50,000 would have been enough to bring it into the other 3 high schools.
Correct. Primarily fee waivers would have been a big chunk of that money.
Any questions or comments?
So will Eastern Montgomery continue to do, I mean, this was for the other 3 high schools, so is Eastern Montgomery continuing to do the program?
It's a year-by-year program. The first year, there were 16 schools involved. This year, there were 32, and Eastern Montgomery was one that was selected. So it
Oh,
depends.
it was
It's not a-
selected, so
yeah,
it
it's not
wasn't a
program we
cost
run.
that we incurred this year.
Correct.
It was they received money from other sources.
Correct.
Okay.
What's the average cost for an app to apply for college?
Anywhere between about $50 and $300.
Any other questions or comments? Number 6, remove 50% of funding from line 7 of approved budget, math instructional enhancements.
What we looked at with that is we believe we can take part of those enhancements from our textbook fund. We'll just delay the purchasing of some of the textbooks. So we feel that we can take that, a part of it from textbooks. Math enhancements are not math coaches. Math enhancements are, Math 180 is a program that we've adopted to use with some of our middle school students. We have a scholastic maintenance plan that's included in that, and Reflex is a program that works primarily on retention of facts, like basic addition, subtraction, multiplication. So those are the type of programs that we're looking at with the math enhancements. We started those this year. Some we need to expand. They were powerful. We're seeing good results. So this comes back to making sure our high schools are accredited and making sure our students have a sound mathematical program.
Questions?
A question about those, and while we're talking about the math coaches, since it's not on this list, it's still in our budget, and it's for 2 math coaches for $127,600. And I talked earlier with Ms. Blackburn on the phone, so she understands my concerns and questions, and but just wanted to relay these, that I would like to understand more about how the software for the math enhancements plus the coaches are used, and what data the staff can provide for us to show that that these are improving our students. I know it's early on for maybe some of these math enhancements with the software, but if we could learn more about both those and math coaches. And this is adding 2 math coaches, but how many do we already have was another question I had.
I can answer some of that tonight if you would like.
Okay.
The math coaches, we added 2 this year.
Okay.
We have 5 at the elementary, but the elementary coaches service math and reading. We've placed them strategically at Title I schools and schools where we see the most need. And we from the elementary, which we started several years ago, we saw phenomenal results right away. That's the year that we first became accredited with all our schools in reading at the elementary level, because you have, well, I'll explain what a coach does in a little bit. At the secondary level, we now have 6 coaches. We've also placed them very strategically and divided them a little bit so we have a certain percentage. For instance, at Eastern Montgomery High School, we have a coach that's there 90% of the time, and then she spends 10% of her time at Blacksburg Middle School. We have a coach at Auburn High, Christiansburg High, Shawsville Middle, Christiansburg Middle, and Auburn Middle. We do not have a coach at Blacksburg High. We've based them on looking at how we're doing academically and where we need help. Blacksburg High, I'm sorry.
So there's 11 total, and that's including the 2 that we put back in the budget?
Yes, that does include the 2.
Is trying to keep 2 of that
Right.
6. Okay.
And the reason we keep bringing coaches to the table, that's instructionally a very sound way to make a difference in the classroom. It's systematic change. Professional development, when you do a one-shot professional development opportunity, then typically teachers go back, they try a thing or 2, but it's lost. When you do a math coach, coaches go in, they do a multitude of things. You first think of them as one-to-one working with a teacher, but they do so much more than that. They model lessons, they help develop lesson plans, they help teachers reflect on what they've done strategically in the classroom. They also look at lesson plans with the teacher and decide, what can we do, what kind of instruction can we bring in that might be different, that might help remediate children. They work sometimes one-to-one with children to help remediate or reteach right before an SOL. We've had some phenomenal success this year with remediating students that did not pass SOLs, and then immediately working with them again, getting them to take it again, and seeing pass rates. Data monitoring is another thing that our instructional coaches help with, looking at that data, deciding what maybe a whole class needs, what a certain group of students needs, how students look in comparison to another school. You know, where are we breaking down? Being very strategic and analytical about what we're doing and how we make a difference. It's really a process that is systematic change. You bring coaches in to help change in the classroom. Asking the teacher to analyze everything herself or himself and do it alone is what we've typically done in the past. And across the country, people are finding that the coaching model makes a significant difference, and it's what we're seeing. And we already have some results coming in from our SOLs this year, where we're seeing that we think we're going to do much better having used the coach. And looking at research, I can quote you research, but I won't do that tonight unless you want to hear all that. But certainly has proven to be worthwhile.
So how long have we had the ones at the elementary level? Is that been a while?
5 or 6 years. I'd have to go back and look that up. Now we've added, since we saw how well they were working, we added one this year. And so we've grown that program.
I'm sure it is someplace that I'm just overlooking or maybe I haven't seen, but one of the things that would be helpful since we have started that program would be to see how our math numbers have either increased or what our testing has been for the past 5 or 6 years with that. I would like to see those numbers.
I'll share a little bit of that with you tonight. I just talked to Jonathan Schultz. In the spring of 2012, math numbers at Christiansburg High School, our pass rate was of 46%.
Mm-hmm.
They implemented a coach mid-year the next year, and scores went up to 54%.
Mm-hmm.
This year, our mid-year scores have gone up to 62%.
Mm-hmm.
Mid-year scores don't compare in that we still have to have the end of the year testing.
Right.
But obviously, with being at 62, we're hoping that will rise even more.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Eastern Montgomery. 2012 was 38. We implemented the coach, went up to 50. This year, the mid-year scores are already at 83.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay, great.
Right. Now, that is
Okay.
a small sample when you're looking
Mhm.
at mid-year scores, but we're certainly thinking that we see a major difference.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments?
Just curious, what are the expertise of those math coaches that differs them what they do from our math teachers won't be able to do? Just the time-wise, that be giving a second hand, or they have certain training, what will be their background?
Both. We certainly work with the math coaches to give them that background on how to work with a team. Another thing that I didn't mention that they do is quite often they work with a team of teachers so that you're getting consistency across a team. You select a teacher that's already known for being strong, which makes a tremendous difference because then they can come in. But we also, this year, are doing professional development across the board with teachers. And using our math, many of the instructional specialists are those train-the-trainer teachers. We train them first and then have them train other teachers. Yeah.
Is there a point where once you've had a math coach in a school for so long, that coach has coached the teachers enough that they don't need the coach?
That is exactly what we would like to see. Of course, as you bring new teachers on, you always have a learning curve, but we've had the coaches work with certain teachers and then move on to other teachers because those teachers have improved their skills. And it's not always that there's a problem with the teacher. It's more so of let's bring in new methods and better methods and things that have proven to work.
Plus, didn't you say that the coaches can do a lot of analysis work that takes the burden off the teacher? Is that correct?
Not only that, it takes the burden off the teacher, it brings the material right to them, so time-wise, they're spending their time with instruction rather than going home and working on analysis.
Right.
So whatever we can provide ahead of time certainly helps that teacher. And also, our instructional specialists look at data across the division, not just one school. So that gives them more comparisons to see if there's an issue somewhere. Where within one school, you're usually looking at your one classroom.
Sounds a little bit like Common Core.
I'm sorry?
Sounds a little bit like Common Core that you're doing it across schools, and we won't go into that.
We won't go there.
No. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, so the math instructional enhancement is going to be cut in half, and you're going to pick up the half you cut from books. So
Correct.
really, the program will still exist
Correct.
at the full 100%.
Yeah, we feel instructionally, this is a key area that
Yeah,
we don't want to move backwards.
good, good. Thank you very much.
So essentially, the textbooks are what are getting cut out of that whole thing.
And delayed might be the better word.
Okay.
Textbooks, when you you choose a book for adoption, you don't necessarily have to purchase that year. So we quite often delay.
Okay.
Okay. And
How-
sometimes it's replacement textbooks. We might find we need less than we predicted, that
Okay.
kind of thing as well.
Okay.
Okay. How long can you delay getting the books?
Indefinitely, as far as I know, but it's a 7-year cycle. So obviously, there comes a time period when you have to say, wait, we're outdated. But
Right.
let me check with Ms. Weaver. Do you know if there's a deadline? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Okay, so my point is you just keep delaying. Before you know it, you need to do new textbooks, and you haven't even gotten into the ones that you approved before.
How we avoid that is we might delay social studies for a year, then a year later purchase that and delay the science for a year. So what you end up doing is delaying a different book and replacing others so that you don't delay one selection for 10 years.
So right now, just in recent years, are we on a pretty good cycle for our textbooks? Do we feel good where we are, or do we?
Yes,
Okay.
but right now we're in pretty good shape.
Okay.
I can't think of an area where I feel like we're in critical need of
Okay.
purchasing something. We've watched it closely.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone, any other comments, questions?
Mr. Ivers, board members, on this next set of questions, I'm going to ask Mr. Michelandro to come up and field these questions. He's done a lot of work and probably can answer most of your questions tonight. Any question that he can't answer, we'll take back and do the research on it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Number 11 is offer full coverage, single subscribe HMO with option to purchase PPO. And that's a save, if we eliminate that, that's a savings of $439,698. And what line is that?
It's not eliminating anything, it's actually doing that.
Right,
That is
right,
correct.
right. I'm sorry.
You make me
So do
feel
most
nervous.
employees today have PPO? And so this is saying if they, I assume they most probably choose PPO over HMO?
Yes, ma'am. There's, this data changes a few employees every month, depending, but on our hires, of course, and then people that leave. But as of last month, we had 926 employees on the PPO and 180 on the HMO.
And do you know the number that would cost per month in this option to purchase the PPO?
Yes, ma'am. Annually, it would be about $506. Now, I'm projecting this off of next year's projected increase for that. So we're looking at about $500 for the year. Now, we do 10-month cycles, so that would be about $50 per paycheck, if you will, for 10 months. And that's pre-tax dollars. So you're looking at about a $38 difference in their net pay. And those are approximate numbers.
And you're pretty confident that increase in health insurance that's in our budget, 1 point something, is maybe even on the low end?
We have an RFP that's out, and it's due. Well, it was due today at 3 o'clock. Those numbers are coming in. Our consultant are crunching those numbers as we speak. So we're going to remain optimistic that the market puts some pressure on bringing that number down.
Other questions? Next item, health insurance, retirement incentive, savings. I can't read that. What is that?
5 at 14.
5 at
1,800.
14,800?
Yes, sir. That's the health incentive program that we have for those who choose to retire.
Right.
We offer insurance for them, pay that in lieu of them substituting for us.
So the staff is estimating 5 people might take advantage of that.
Yes, it's hard to predict. Yes, ma'am. We had a retirement meeting a few weeks ago. We had approximately 6 people raise their hand that said they would be interested, and it wasn't a very emphatic raising of the hands. Right.
So we've been offering this for several years now. So are we thinking those folks who are at the age and years of service may have already taken advantage of the program at this point?
We have a number of employees that could retire right now and take advantage of the program. But economic factors are preventing people from retiring, and one of the largest economic factors is health insurance. It's a large reason why people do not retire because of the cost associated with health care.
Any other questions? I'll ask this next, I'll do this next line, then turn the gavel over to Mr. Jones. Remove line 18 from approved budget, which is 2.8% increase for salary enhancements distribution to be determined by plan/salary schedule. And that's $2,352,000.
And was that 2.8%, was that a planned step increase built in there?
It was going to hopefully be a combination of a couple things, a step increase and maybe some enhancement of the current schedule, salary schedule, is what we were looking at, kind of a combination of those things with that 2.8%. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'd like to recommend that not be on this list, that stay there.
I agree with you.
It's my understanding, though, that not everybody is going to receive that. Is that true? Not everybody would receive a raise?
The percentage would be different for everyone, yes, sir. Not everybody would get a 2.8%, but we would hope that everybody would get some kind of increase. But again, it depends on what step you are in, and like the teacher scale in particular, because we have those steps where there's no increase. So to answer their question is, yes, there would be some that would not get an increase because of it, unless there was an enhancement to the salary schedule as it stands now.
Because this was one of the questions that one of the Board of Supervisors members asked when we were presenting it to the Board Supervisor. We said yes, but when we went back and looked at it, it was not the case, because there would be some people in certain grades in certain areas of the division who wouldn't receive any increase, thought was the response. Is that true, Ms. Milano? You remember the...
I wouldn't have.
The question at the Board of Supervisors was whether or not it was across-the-board increase.
Right.
We initially answered that was correct. At the time, that was an incorrect answer. We went back and researched it. And I will say this. At the time we gave the answer, we weren't certain exactly how that pay increase would look. As Mr. Michelandra just said, it would probably look like a couple of different ways. Maybe it's hard to explain because we haven't done all of the research and we haven't gotten the compensation study back that's out there. that would help us decide what direction we would go in. But again, it would not be an across-the-board pay increase where everyone would get 2.8%.
Okay. I mean, I agree. I think it should stay. So I just want to double check. I want people to understand that we're not going across the board 2.8%.
When will we have the results back from that study to understand the details?
As you can imagine, the last 5 years have been very difficult, and we have finalized those numbers earlier this week. We're anticipating that they should have a preliminary schedule for us tomorrow, but the final report's not due back until later at the end of this month is what we're looking at. So we'll have some more, if you will, definitive numbers at hopefully not the next board meeting, but the first board meeting in April.
Okay.
So if we were to leave that in there, where would we find $2,352,000?
That's what we're here for.
Eliminate.
But I mean, has anybody got any ideas? Do you have anything to replace it with?
Oh, okay.
No.
Any ideas?
I think we should probably continue down this list and then go into those details. My recommendation.
Repeat that, please, I'm sorry.
She was asking how we're going to find $2.8 million, and I was just thinking it might be better to just continue down this list and then talk those details.
That's what we pay Mr. McAlander and the rest of the administration to do.
We're just kind of about at the end. That's the only reason why I'm asking. So,
Dr. Graham and her staff.
Yeah.
That's what they're here tonight, as I understand, is to get clear direction on what we want to keep and not keep, right? So
Yes, sir.
that's- And my personal opinion is that all three of those lines should stay. Okay, we're losing ground. We're losing ground quickly to our competing school divisions. And if we don't have a qualified staff, then the educational services don't meet up as well.
What about line item 12? What's your concern about keeping that there?
It's not, I'm recommending we keep it.
Oh, I thought you were saying take
Yeah.
it away. Okay.
I
About
think
the
all of that should
three.
be eliminated. I think we need to figure out a way to be able to keep.
But I guess I'm asking the early retirement and health insurance thing, why is that bad to put there? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, he's saying it should be eliminated from the reduction list, not that it should be eliminated.
Okay, but, okay.
Is that what you said?
I guess I just don't see why offering the early retirement incentive, why is that bad to offer that?
No.
Of losing those people, is that what you're?
No, I don't think he's saying it's bad.
Bear with me, but
hard to see.
it's hard to see. My board
Both
docs
ways.
thing's not coming up here. Bear with me.
Well, while he's doing that, my plan was to go through the complete list. And if something was there of a disfavor, we would note it, but complete the list and then go back and deal with that.
That's fine. I'm just saying that if I had to look at.
So while you're doing that, the next item is reduce athletic and academic stipends by 20%. And we'll go back and we'll look at the compensation benefits when we finish the whole list.
I assume when you say 20% for that item, then, I found a 2012 number that coaching supplements is about 438,000. So I'm assuming academic is a lot less than that. So that 20% affects both of those categories to 134,000. And how would that affect athletics and academics to do that? I guess we'd eliminate some academics, extracurricular stuff, and wouldn't pay a few coaches, or?
We're investigating that right now. That's a number that we came up with for a 20% reduction, and that could look and have many different faces to it, if you will. It may mean reduction in the number, or just a reduction in the amount that we're given, but that's the number we're proposing right now.
Do we have any difficulty getting coaches?
Yes, sir.
We do.
Yes, sir.
So 20% won't make it easier, I guess, what you're saying.
That's right.
Yeah. Any other comments? You want to continue?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Any other comments? Next item, reduce professional development travel budget by 10% and revise travel guidelines. What is revising travel guidelines? What are we talking about?
Correct. Our hope, and this is another one we'll have to look at closely to determine exactly how we would do it, but basically looking at the travel guidelines and ensuring, for instance, if teachers go to a conference, that we require carpooling and would only pay for one car, that type thing, to just be a little bit more stringent on our travel guidelines and try to reduce that.
Questions? Comments?
So our budget right now is about 100,000 in that category for all employees?
Yes, we do have Title II funds as well that cover a lot of professional development. So this, we're looking at the funds that are primarily general funds.
Any other questions?
Does this impact people's ability for accreditation or professional certification or anything of that nature?
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
We would still allow professional development. We would just watch the travel expenditures.
Okay.
Thank you. Remove line 29 from approved budget, replace one-time funds for 21st century classroom improvements.
Okay. On these next three items, all under capital improvements, if you might recall last year we received one-time funds for those. We're hopeful that the Board of Supervisors will again be generous with us and provide the funding in a one-time appropriation for us to be able to continue those projects.
The three projects?
Yes, sir.
So that's a total of 2, 3, 4, 5, $500,000.
Right, about
More than
500
that,
some plus.
575, yeah.
Yes, sir.
What did we ask, what did we get last year?
I believe that was the same exact
Same
number.
number.
Was that
Wasn't
it?
that the same? Yeah, it was the same amount last
Same
year.
amount as last year.
Okay. Questions? Comments?
Well, I've always stated for the last couple of budgets, capital shouldn't be in our operating, and
I
it should be
agree with that.
discussed separately.
Yep.
I understand why the superintendent puts it here, but as far as what we're faced with regarding cuts and the money available, I still think this should be set aside and addressed in a totally independent, separate discussion.
And that's the intention, sir.
Okay.
So if we cut that, it won't be here, and we'll,
Right. I'm just
But I agree with
reiterating
you.
my stance on putting capital in an operating budget. That's not how you do it.
okay, we've gone through that list. Now, Mr. Jones, we have some consternation over compensation and benefits, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I just made the statement, I think lines 11, 12, and 13 should not be eliminated as suggested here. Now, help me line 11, is that the health insurance retirement incentive savings? So this is where we've offered the early retirement. Is that what that line is the early retirement line?
That's the early retirement incentive,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay, it's just worded, okay. Now, and I asked this on today, earlier, line 11, are we saying that people will now pay, single subscriber will be paying for their insurance? Sorry to have you repeat that.
No.
No, sir.
Okay.
What we're saying is that the employees will be offered the HMO, and they can buy up if they want the PPO. So they would pay the difference between the HMO and the PPO,
Okay.
which next year is approximately $500 for the year.
And he told us
So-
earlier before you came that it was, what was it, 900 versus 100, 100 employees have the HMO?
That's correct.
have the PPO today.
And you indicated it was like $43 a month.
It's about $50. It's going to be just over $50 if all the numbers hold true. Just over $50, but that's pre-tax dollars again. So the net would be a difference of approximately $38 per pay.
So the HMO is still going to be the way it is, and we're going to pay 100% of that.
That's correct.
But if they want more, better care or better coverage, less deductibles, all that, they can buy up to the PPO.
Yes, sir. I don't know that I would phrase it that they pay more in deductibles. If you do the side-by-side comparison, there's not a whole lot of difference in the plans. The biggest difference is that you have to have a primary care physician with the HMO. So you have to go through your primary care physician before you go to a specialist. That's the primary difference in the two. There's no difference in the prescriptions, prescription drugs. And there's not a whole lot of difference in the pay plans, if you will, if you go to the doctor.
So you have the same selection of doctors in both?
Yes, ma'am. Same provider network.
Okay.
Okay,
I guess I'm
so-
trying to understand how it's a savings then. I mean, if we're still going to pay 100% of the employee's insurance, and if they decide they want some additional coverage, it's on their nickel.
Because today we pay 100% of the PPO.
Oh, we're paying 100% of the
Right.
PPO. Okay, thank you.
So basically, we're going to decrease our offering to our employees with health care.
Okay. No, ma'am. The HMO in some areas is actually richer in coverage. The coverage is still the same. I think the biggest difference in the two plans is the fact of how they're carried out, how the employee has to get the coverage. In the HMO, their primary thing that they have to do is go through their physician. The PPO, they can choose anybody, go anytime, they can switch physicians, they can do that. It gives them more flexibility, that is true. But the plans themselves are if you do a side-by-side comparison, are very rich. And again, like with the HMO, just an example of that, a pregnancy with the HMO, there's a one-time fee for that. I'd have to grab my paperwork. I think it's $150 they pay, and then they're done. They don't pay anything else throughout that pregnancy. Where the PPO, they pay every time they go back to the doctor. So it's, again, it depends on which plan you're on and how you see it as rich, but they're both very rich plans. And especially when it comes to prescription drugs as well. The prescription drugs are equal. There's no difference in the prescription drugs. So what we're saying is that we'll give you this HMO. If you want the PPO to have that freedom, you can do that, but then there's a cost associated with that, with choosing the, if you will, that freedom of choice.
And that's a $500 cost?
Per year, yes, ma'am.
year.
Right. Those are estimates based on next year's estimated increases.
Okay.
And we're paying that now.
Right, so
Yes.
our employees we're paying for that now, so we're saying we want them to pay for that next year.
That's
The
correct.
same plan that we're offering them now.
That's correct.
You know where I'm at with that.
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
yeah.
So are we telling what each one of us want to stricken from this since you threw that out, or? Because I would like to see the field trips come off, and I would like to see the athletic and academic stipends come off. And as far as the supplies budget, I don't see how you can cut the supplies for cleaning new schools and all the stuff that we're building. I mean, as far as the reams of paper, I've got a grandson in kindergarten, and he brings home tons of copied stuff every day. So, I'm kind of fudgy on that. But as far as cleaning supplies, and we've got lots of new buildings and lots of new things. I don't see how we can cut that too much. But, along with the other two things, I would like to see stricken from this.
I would just like to make the statement in response a little bit to Mr. Jones's request about line 13. the issue becomes, obviously, $2.3 million is a huge amount. And as it's already been stated tonight, 88% of our budget is spent on personnel. So if I can read between the lines and all of that, the number right beside that 2.3 is could possibly mean if we want to keep that $2.3 million, it could, because our budget is so heavy in personnel, 36 jobs. I don't see any other way of taking anything out without affecting that amount of jobs. So if there is a creative way that we can replace that $2.3 million some way, I am definitely I'm open to hearing it, but I want everyone to realize that more than likely it's going to equal 36 jobs.
Like, would you remind us again the last time, well, last year, there was some pay increase, but that was not shown in anyone's paycheck. So when was the last time that in the paycheck it was shown? And also, the last time some kind of step increase happened with employees?
I believe it's been 5 years since you had any substantive pay increase. Up until last year, you had a 2% increase that came from the state. That's in the last, I believe now it's 6 years, isn't it? Now, 08, 09. So that's the last year that we saw anything.
And the state's not providing that money this year,
That's
right?
correct.
I'm a little,
What the state provided was, that money was absorbed in basic aid. So it's absorbed somewhere else in a very complicated formula. But it doesn't pay for any pay increases.
Mr. Lyons, are you, I'm a little confused. Are you indicating that 2.3 million, instead of going to raises, should go to teachers, hiring new teachers?
No, what I'm saying is that if we try to keep that $2.3 million in the budget, it's going to cost us 36 jobs somewhere along the way. So much of our budget, 88% of our budget is personnel. The only place to take it from is personnel. And so in order to regain, if we're going to try to give raises to those people, it's going to cost 36 jobs somewhere.
And keep all the small schools open as well.
A lot of times.
Try to,
A lot of times what happens with that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it occurs through attrition. In the last times we've had this situation, the superintendent has been able, it's basically you don't replace the position. And it goes to in her narrative, she indicated what would happen if we increased the PTR by one. And while I'm not in favor of that, considering the conditions we're in, it's something we'd have to take a close look at. And that's what the question I asked today, because that itself would be 22 positions. So does that occur with attrition, or does that occur with not renewing contracts?
Okay.
So,
And I asked that today too, and Ms. Blackburn explained that 22, she was confident she could take care of with attrition, and almost even more confident that 44 could.
44 could through attrition.
Yeah, okay. And we keep letting folks or having folks leave the district, and we don't replace them, and the PTRs go up and our scores go down, and the safety in the building gets compromised, in my opinion, because you have less bodies there. When does it stop? I mean, you just can't keep doing this. You know, there are a couple little things on here that I think we might reconsider, but for the biggest part, this is stuff we have to have. We keep cutting, and we keep trying to educate and run the school district on a 2008, 2009 budget, and this is 2014, 15 we're talking about?
Well, nothing's increased. Are you kidding? I'm being a little sarcastic, sorry.
Okay, this is not the time, I said, right?
I've been up a long time today.
Well, I've been here for a couple of meetings, so I'm ready to go.
I agree with you.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
I agree with you.
For us to be sitting here and looking at trying to reduce $4 million again. Again, that's what we have done for the last 3 years. $4 million. How do you do it and keep things running the way you're supposed to? You know, I'm prepared this year to make some decisions that I wasn't prepared in years before because we found some kind of way to find the money and make things work. But I think we are way beyond that. And looking at how we do some things differently in the district, you know, things that we've heard from on the news that other districts are doing, and quite frankly, that's closing schools, you know, figuring out how we do this smarter. And I'm ready to have those discussions because I'm not willing to have this discussion anymore about cutting teachers, cutting pay, cutting benefits. When you look at what's going on in the districts around us and across the state, and quite frankly for the state of Virginia, the way our teachers are compensated across the country, we're not going to get anywhere. It's coming down to those who can afford to be educated will be educated, and public education, which is the safe hole for everyone else, you won't be educated in this country. And when that happens, we end up like we are now, and it's going to get worse. We have got to make some, unfortunate, hard decisions to make sure that we're not losing bodies and we're not taking our employees for granted. Because when you don't pay them, and you don't give them a decent benefit package, you take them for granted. And I don't want people who are feeling taken for granted in classrooms with the most precious things that we have is our children, which, as I've told you, we have them for 13 years. For 13 short years. And if we mess up, if we keep messing up by cutting the teachers, what's the point? We could send them to daycare and do the same thing.
At this point, Ms. Blackburn had written comments, materials, and other considerations for budget reduction deliberations. And in there, she talked about facilities, other considerations. Do we want to address that at this time?
That was going to be my next question. I think we should.
And Mr. Stanton, could you read that? Is that appropriate?
Yeah. I mean, when you're asking the board if they want to, and she provided to us.
Yeah.
There's a list of stuff there, so absolutely, yeah. I mean, we need to,
Do you have that?
it's in her narrative, it's page 2 of her narrative.
Okay, thank you.
Part of it is.
And you could probably start at facilities, because I think you read the first 2 paragraphs earlier.
Okay. We would be, is everyone ready? We would be remiss not to investigate the potential closure of selected buildings throughout the county to maximize instructional space and cost effectiveness. I recommend that this investigation begin in 2014-15 with potential action for the 2015-16 school year. 1, the latest enrollment projections for the 10-year period 2013 through 2022 indicate a decrease of 1% in enrollment over the first 4 years and about 1% increase during the latter part of the 10-year period. 1% is the equivalent of about 150 students across the entire school division. Small schools and district strand configurations are extremely expensive as operational models. They are roadblocks to making maximum use of existing space. For that reason, I recommend that the Montgomery County Public School use the 2014-15 school year to consider plans to close Shawsville Middle School and Harding Avenue Elementary School effective with the 2015-16 school year as long-term cost-saving measures. I have attached long-term enrollment data for your review that will provide you the information needed to understand this recommendation. Please note the following summary comments. For the East Montgomery area, enrollment data for the 10-year period indicates that there are 395 seats available between EMES and EMHS, with an estimated savings of $300 per year to close Shawsville Middle School.
300,000 per year.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Enrollment of less than 250 students. A savings of $1.5 million would be generated over 5 years, and over 10 years, this would accumulate to $3 million. Another option for accommodating Shawsville Middle School is to combine the school with Christiansburg Middle School, where there are 400 available seats through the next 10-year period. Blacksburg area elementary enrollment data for the 10-year period shows 271 seats available between Price's Fork Elementary and Kips for at least 5 years, and 244 seats available at the 10-year mark. Harding Avenue Elementary could be accommodated between these two schools for at least 5 years, and if out of the area enrollment were controlled, Harding Avenue Elementary School could likely be accommodated for 10 years using the available space at Kips and Price's Fork Elementary. Each year would represent a savings of approximately $300,000, with a total of $1.5 million in savings over the 5-year period and $3 million over the 10-year period. Other considerations: the state legislature did not complete the budget and will reconvene March 24th, 2014. The pending Senate budget would bring us an additional $291,958, while the House budget would bring Montgomery County Public Schools just $15,926 more dollars. I urge you and our public to contact the delegation, encouraging them, or the Senate, budget as opposed to the House. One FTE for employee position is valued at $63,800, average salary and benefits. A 1% improvement in the regular payroll for all employees costs $850,000. In considering opportunities for other needed improvements, such as improving employee compensation, increasing PTR by 1 student in grades 4 to 12, would provide the school division $1.4 million per year to be used for the other prioritized needs. New revenue from the state totals $2.47 million, but is accompanied by mandated expenditures for $1.757 million of this money. The level funding for education proposed by Montgomery County does not include $575,000 for roofing projects, technology, and buses that was provided for this year with one-time funds. I plan to request the Board of Supervisors to consider funding these items again from one-time sources. However, there's no guarantee of approval for availability of such funds. My recommendations for reductions make no change in the staffing recommendations approved in our February budget. I consider these positions essential to supporting student improvement in mathematics, gaining state accreditation for all Montgomery County schools, continuing to provide a safe and orderly environment at all of our schools, and supporting the new state mandates that impact our current manpower. In summary, the hard work of balancing the budget is just beginning. My recommendations are a starting point. My staff and I will be available to answer questions, provide you with additional information, and provide cost analysis for other ideas that come forward to balance the school budget. I urge you and the citizens of Montgomery County Public Schools to speak up for the needs of our school system. I have often said, as the school system goes, so goes the community in which we live. An investment in public education is one of the most important things that a community can do.
Thank you.
Ms. Franklin referred to how we've been hearing about other schools and things that they've had to do, and it seems like we in the paper lately we're reading about many other counties and not our county, but hopefully we'll hear about our county soon. But I wonder what some of those things that they're doing, if far before they've looked at these ideas, that they have had to raise their PTRs in their classrooms. I know that the history in Montgomery County is that we've had them very low. And I would not even entertain this conversation if it doesn't involve giving our teachers some compensation. So that's the only reason I would bring this up. But I would like to understand, and I know surveying teachers is not very objective sometimes because everyone's in a different situation, but if we were to raise the PTR by 1 or by 2, would that be something that they would want to talk about if they were going to receive a raise? Because that will give us 1.4 if we do it 1, and that's only for grades 4 and up. But I would also like to understand if that happens at the secondary level, how would that affect some programs in our high schools? Would we have to, would we end up losing some programs that are available?
Yeah, at the secondary level, obviously, we made the reductions to the middle school programs last year, and so there's not room to make reductions there, so it would certainly be at the high school, and you can't impact general PTR at high school the way you do at elementary, so it would certainly be a reduction in programs.
Can you be more specific when you say reduction in programs? I mean, are we talking about CTE programs, music, art?
For the number that's listed here, it would be all of the above.
All of the above?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be some from CTE. It would have to be some of our upper level offerings that we've tried to keep available, even if class sizes are small, to maintain some equity.
We have some classes where there's maybe like 6 or 11 people in them, right? Could be something like that.
Which would be eliminating those whole, for example, advanced placement offerings at some of our smaller high schools. So yeah, it would impact all program areas at the high school.
One request I would have with item 4 too is if we increased it, then what would that bring our PTR up? We get a matrix from time to time that talks about PTR. So if we were to enact number 4, how much would it raise it? What would the number go to compared to what it is now?
Well, and if we're talking about raising it by 1 at the elementary level, I think we're at 18 point. I think you have it at your seat as well.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I hadn't had a chance to go through my stuff.
If you look, there's a PowerPoint from the beginning of the year dated September 17th. And on page 1 of that PowerPoint, down in the bottom right-hand corner for the 2013-14 year, we're up to 18.84. So raising it by 1, 19.
Okay.
That's a little bit deceptive in that that's an average.
Yes.
So when you start looking at class by class and grade by grade, that can vary greatly. Because as we've mentioned before, students don't come in nice little packets. So you end up with some grades, classroom PTR of 23, another might drop to 18, depending upon the size of school.
Well, we call them bubbles. There's bubbles of kids. There's just a larger group of kids in certain grades that kind of follow that same pattern.
Yes, that as
they go
well.
through.
Mhm.
We've seen that for years.
Are you just talking elementary?
That's what I'm talking on this particular page.
Okay, the superintendent indicated that she was talking grades 4 through 12.
Okay.
Is,
Correct. K through 3, we receive money for class size reduction, and we're already at the level that if we increase PTR at K through 3, we'll actually lose funding that we get for having class
Okay.
size reduction.
that wasn't my question was, are you dealing with what she's asking, 4 through 12? Or just 4 and 5? When you
The
get,
sheet you're looking at right now is elementary.
Right.
And Ms. Weaver just spoke to, if you, at secondary level, the PTR doesn't come in a nice little package, you end up cutting programs.
right,
Does that answer your question?
kinda, yes.
So if we're receiving funding to keep K through 3 PTR low, that could be because that's a good thing. And we're going to say, okay, let's just increase it by 1. And last year was by 1. And the year before, by 1. Sooner or later, you have classrooms of 30 kids. You know, at some point, you have to stop. And I'm at that point. You know, I was at that point last year and the year before. You all have heard my comments about this. And what I feel is the impact is negative to the school system by increasing that. So again, the average is a little deceiving, because all you have to do is look at the average in these classrooms right now, and there's 20, 23, 21. You know, there's as many of those, if not more now, than there are of those in the teens.
And along with that, everything we're talking about is losing programs also. We're increasing class size, losing programs, and that's got to stop. It's got to stop tonight.
Okay, and I agree with that. But then,
Well, if,
where does the money come from if you want to compensate your?
if, you know,
Where
state
does it-
won't give anything and county won't budge, what we gonna do then?
And the
I mean-
teachers groups that come to talk to us continue to say that the morale is terrible.
Yeah.
How do
So, I
you
mean, we
balance
have to
that?
come up with the monies, some shape and form, unfortunately.
I agree with you, but what I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out, which is, where do we
Don't wanna cut.
begin to focus? I mean, if we can not cut PTR and also not give raises, and we can also reduce benefits, I guess the question is that when do we, I don't like doing either, I want to try to keep them both, but in this budget cycle, we're not going to be able to do that unless we agree that collectively that we're not going to give any raises.
Especially when you know health insurance is increasing by at least $1 million. Like,
I don't want to increase the PTR either. I remember these discussions back years ago and how we even approved supplemental requests when we had extra, the administration would bring us and say we've got a classroom problem and we're not meeting our goal, and we would approve hiring an extra teacher
All right.
to reduce the PTR.
when was it changed the last time? It has not when I'm on here, I don't think.
What do you
When you
mean
say the
change?
change?
The PTRs for the
PTR.
different,
Oh, it
the number,
hasn't changed.
the average that the caps that we have.
It's been going up each year.
Yeah, every year it has.
Yeah, our standards haven't changed.
Yeah, that's what
but
I'm
the-
asking, the standard.
Yeah, our standards haven't
Right.
changed. It's the numbers that are changing.
Okay.
When we calculate PTR, we only count teachers and students. We don't count the other adults in the buildings, all right? That's how we say, because there's a difference with calculating class size and PTR.
Yes.
The way we do PTR, just the number of kids and number of classroom teachers.
Right, we're looking at students in a classroom seat, students to a classroom teacher.
Okay, I guess I'll say it again. Time to make some hard decisions, and I don't know if that can wait till 2015-16. Yeah.
I just have a question about the conversation about the different schools that she mentioned. I don't know that I could support the Shawsville Middle School coming to Christiansburg Middle School. You know, we've had many, many conversations about crossing district lines and, I mean, not district lines, but, you know. Strands. I don't understand why that would be the case when there's room at maybe Shawsville High School, because I know we spoke a couple times in the years past about how that school module could be separated to host, and I'm not saying I'm for it or against it, I'm just saying I don't like the idea of crossing strands, never have. And as far as the elementary school in Blacksburg, you know, that was one of the things that I had made comments years ago, and we had lots of outpouring, but we had outpouring when Bethel closed, and we did it. We had outpouring when Shawsville closed, or Elliston closed, but we did it. And do what?
When we combined it.
When we combined the two schools. In those two strands, that happened. And I've often made comment that when we built Price's Fork, we should have looked at that option at that point. Not that we're in the business to do that, but sometimes you have to, and we've done it in two other strands.
Right.
You know, so that's something that I'm willing to look at, is that situation, because we have 5 elementary schools in Blacksburg. You know, with Harding Avenue being 278, which hosts 1,878 kids, where, I'm just going to use Christiansburg for an example, you've got 1,717 kids in 4 schools. So it's an option of a way to look at that. Like I said, I know we've toyed around with that issue for years and years and years, but I think for me, when we built Price's Fork, I wish we would have took a stronger look at it then.
And my response would be Ms. Blackburn's comments is doing exactly what she intended it to do, was to generate a discussion on that subject.
And I think if I heard correctly, Ms. Franklin says it can't wait till the next year.
I don't believe it can.
Okay.
Not if we want to keep the integrity of Montgomery County schools.
Okay.
You know, I've had spoken several times when the issue came up, especially in the Shawsville area, or say Eastern Montgomery area, about putting middle school and high school children together. But now we have a elementary school that can compensate some of the children on the younger end of the middle school. And I don't think it makes any sense to bring children to Christiansburg. One of the reasons is because we are so overcrowded in the elementary schools in Christiansburg. We're going to have to very soon look at what we do, quite frankly, in my opinion, with the middle school in the 5th grade in Christiansburg to alleviate the crowding in the lower grades. So, as much as I don't like making these hard decisions, that's part of my job. And I believe it needs to be on the table, and we need to be talking about it very seriously with Harding Avenue and Shawsville Middle School. We don't have time to play around with this and be, you know, nice and make it feel good, because it's not going to feel good no matter what we do with it.
None of this feels good.
None of it.
None of it.
Because we are only talking about $300,000 for the first year. So that's, of course, not any near for our 3.9 shortage. But I guess that's a start if you want to look at it that way. But it's not a huge savings. Those two brings in, at least for the first year.
Is there something that's available that shows us exactly what those savings are? I mean, the numbers are $300,000 for both of those schools. What,
Right.
Where did we get those numbers? Do we pull them out of a hat? What do we do? I'd like to see some detail in that, because obviously, you know, if we were to make that change, even if we were to take Shawsville Middle School and then we were busing kids to Christiansburg Middle School, obviously there are expenses in that. So I would just like to see where those numbers came from, to see if it does make sense. The other part of that too, with what Ms. Franklin has just suggested, moving it up even another year, is that even possible?
We've done it before.
I mean, can we do that in 6 months, essentially?
Well, what we'll do is go back and take a look at what you've asked for, evaluate the numbers, and then we'll present something to you.
Okay.
Okay.
So the savings would be 300,000 for each school?
That's what it is, yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
For this year, if we did it this year?
Yeah, the estimate is based on an estimate of $300,000 per school for
Right.
each, yes,
Per year,
for 14, 15.
yeah.
Or, well,
No,
she's
right.
suggesting 15, 16.
Right, but we're saying 40, 50.
It'd be the same.
Be the same.
Yeah.
And Mr. Lyons has requested that we give
Yeah.
a
Because I
little
believe
more
that's a lot.
detailed information on how you arrived at $300,000.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
So there were some other items on the list as well. So we've talked about PTR, and, you know, I think that's a continuing discussion. We see that the new revenue from the state, and then the funding. So that kind of covers her list. So at this point, let me ask you, do you have enough what kind of information do you have from this board at this time?
To recap,
Yeah.
you are rejecting the items 11, 12, and 13. We wanted to remove from the reductions list. That's the first item I have.
I'm not totally in agreement with
Yeah,
that.
I'm not
Jack.
totally, I mean, are we voting, have we voted on that? I mean, I don't think so. I think it's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would not say that we're taking it off
Okay,
as of
thank you.
yet.
But the question I raised earlier today was that if that was removed, then what else would need to be cut, or how deeper would the other cuts go?
Well, we would have to go back and take a look
Right, I
at
know.
that list, and I couldn't give you that answer right off.
Right, and
today.
I wouldn't expect that right now.
Yes, sir.
But, you know, I'm trying to generate discussion around those topics and to see what is the impact if they were not removed from this, not reduced. You know, what else has to happen?
Am I correct in assuming that the majority of the board agrees that the salary enhancement should stay?
Should stay where?
Should stay as a reduction?
Yeah. To stay right, no,
Proposed budget.
pardon me?
On the proposed budget?
In other words, we're not going to eliminate that. The 2.352, we're not eliminating that. We're going to keep that in there for the teachers. Is that what I'm hearing from the board?
For me.
I would like to try to attempt that, yes.
Yeah, we have to have a counter solution to that if we're
Right.
Well,
not,
it's
you know,
just-
yeah.
we're just-
But yeah, we would like to
And you're, yeah.
pretty much everything
I
there.
like your term, counter solution, I like that. I like that.
Unfortunately, I mean, it's just,
And, you know, of the three, in the interest of compromise, I mean, I'm not married to the item 12, it's just it's just a
But I think,
negotiable amount, but item 13 and item 11 is, again, about trying to remain competitive.
yeah.
Well, I have to kind of see when it comes about not being across the line on the 2.8, I'd like to see a little more information about that because, you know, that bothers me a little bit. And, you know, even though, as I was the one who with the backpack initiative, I said if the state can give $800,000 for that, they can give $800,000 for raises, in my opinion. So what I'm about to say, I don't mean this to sound ugly, but we also have to, and I think talking about morale, sometimes we have to see that, you know, we've continued the health care every year. And I know that doesn't look like money, but it is. And those are things that sometimes you have to look at through a different set of eyes. And so with the 2.8%, you know, I have to see that those folks in the maintenance areas and things like that are getting some kind of benefit as well,
Yeah.
and different, you know, groupings, so.
Yeah, as Mr. Michael Andrews said when he came up earlier, talked about the compensation study, and we should have some numbers, what was it? First meeting in April. First meeting in April, that we can give you some more definitive, how that breakdown may look at that point.
Is that the study that compares with other school districts as well?
No, sir, that study is just to try to repair the damage, if you will, that's been done over the last 5 years.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, was that all you had on your list?
Well, I had several things, but nothing specific, any specific directions. You talked about the closing of schools, maybe moving that forward. But in terms of looking specifically at some definitive things that you want us to look at, other than the compensation study, we would like to see some more direction in terms of recommendations or.
Well, I think one thing would be to see, related to the school closings, can that happen this year?
Okay.
Okay, I mean, I think you need to go back to your staff and ask them, is it feasible to make this happen?
And my question is, if
That's
that
clear.
happens, what kind of
What
redistricting would happen with it? The details of that.
Okay, that's clear.
Okay. You had Mr. Lyons' request, right?
I have his request on the detailed information about the, how to get the numbers for that.
For the 300,000, yeah, for each school,
300,000,
I'd just like
right.
to see some detail on that.
And I would like, I know Ms. Weaver said it would be impact every programs, but I would still like to see that written down. I mean, I would like to see a little more, when we're talking about the increase in the PTR by 1, that's going to have an impact on other programs. What are those other programs? Let's get those listed. And if it has to be by school, you know, if it's AP classes that certain schools are not going to be able to offer, if it impacts career and technical ed, if it impacts art, science, whatever it is, I'd like to see a little bit more granularity related to that. Consideration.
So,
I'd like to see how we could possibly move the children in the middle school, in between the two, the elementary and the high school, what that would look like.
For Eastern Montgomery.
For Eastern Montgomery, yeah.
the-
Oh, the middle school and the high school.
High school,
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
how we move those middle school.
That was one of the suggestions,
Right.
right, before, and then the other suggestion was to transport all those students to CMS, right?
You have two options, one dividing them between East Montgomery Elementary and East Montgomery High,
Yeah.
and the other option is,
And I'm just going to
Just
remind us
ridiculous.
again, elementary schools in Christiansburg are busting at the seams. And there is not going to be a new building anytime soon, and we can't continue to let those children be taught in closets.
So if I'm clear, what you're asking for is to evaluate or to take a look at what it would look like, the cost, and to move those kids over from South Shawsville Middle School to East Montgomery High School
And the middle, and
Middle
the
school.
elementary school.
and the elementary school.
Yeah.
So what grade are you thinking we would
You're
move
talking
over
about
to
how-
elementary school? Sixth grade?
Yeah,
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think what she's,
yeah.
how would sixth grade fit into Eastern Montgomery Elementary School?
I got you.
Okay.
Yes,
And seventh and eighth grade fit over in the high school.
So changing from a K through 5 to K through 6.
Right,
And then a 7 through 12.
right.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, we've had this discussion before, so I just assumed you knew what I was talking about.
I understand. No, I'm following you.
You weren't here, okay.
That's okay, ma'am.
Board members, any other items of direction you want to give administration related to the budget?
Do you feel like I have a good place now?
I have some direction.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We have to remember that Board of Supervisors are putting a lid on their budget Monday. And once that lid is on, it can't go up. Am I correct?
Mr. Ivers, they're not putting a lid on their budget, they're putting a cap on the
Advertised
advertised tax rate,
Right.
is what they'll
Well-
be talking about on Monday.
Oh,
And so they,
I'm
they s-
sorry, thank you,
They still won't approve a budget until April.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, that's crucial. If that happens, I don't know where we'll stand. So I think the citizenship needs to know that right now, they know what's on the table, and it doesn't look good. It looks very sad. And the only way it's going to change is to go back to the citizens and the supervisors to see what they can do to help us out. And I think that's crucial.
I just had one more question and comment. One thing that we talked about when the school board office moved to this building was consolidating of services. And I know that that's a slow process at times because
Right.
upfront things have to happen. But was hoping that in the future that we could share with us and the public what has been happening to get us closer to that objective.
No.
When we might see some cost savings.
And what those cost savings will be. Okay.
And, you know,
To restate, you want to look at, you want us to take a look at the merging of responsibilities or services provided between the county and the school district.
Right.
Okay. And what those cost savings are as a result of that merger.
Yeah. When a time frame of when we might start seeing and those savings.
Yes, ma'am.
And you know what the supervisors will be doing, what they can do. You know, they can advertise a higher rate, but they don't have to set it at that rate. So that's the reason why I think it's important for people to be here Monday night, because if they were able to come up with more money or they wanted to do a different rate, they can do that. So, but as Mr. Ivers said, this is difficult and it's going to be sad all the way around. And I would encourage people to contact their legislators. And the Senate budget adds an additional nearly $300,000 to our budget. The House budget only adds 16 grand, rounded up.
So if the Senate
I still think both those numbers are sad when they have carried down, okay, 1.5 in mandates. Okay, this 1.5 in mandates impacts everybody sitting in this room that Richmond is pushed down to us. So,
if they give 2.5 but mandate 1.5, so
Yeah.
1 million for everything else to be covered by, which obviously not enough.
so it's not the school system sometimes raising the taxes, and it's not the Board of Supervisors sometimes raising. It's out of necessity because of what the state is continuing not to fund, both at the county level and at the school system level.
And I'll just say, that's why I believe some hard decisions will have to be made, because the citizens of Montgomery County have, year after year after year, been asked to step up, you know, and not everybody can keep stepping up. It's that simple. So, it's going to be some hard decisions made this year, I do believe.
Board members, any further comments on the budget? It's been, information that's been presented to us this evening? Any more direction that you think you would like, we need to give the administration?
Thank you for providing all this information and
Yeah.
Yes.
answering all our questions.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank everyone for their hard work over the past week and a half, but please convey our thanks to everybody.
Yes, sir. We will.
So, all right.
That's it.
If that's it, we'll move to the next agenda item, and that is the next school board meeting is Tuesday, March the 18th. You see the agenda there in front of you. It will hopefully be out tomorrow afternoon, and that we will have any questions about that. And with that, the next item is adjournment. I seek a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're now adjourned. Thank you all for your attendance. Safe trip home.